Islands. Besides Heather, he's called in two of the foremost experts on Maya symbols, Carl Taube and David Stewart.
Well, we'll definitely have about 4 meters.
Something that was really clear to me when Bill came out of the jungle with his first pictures of the painting was that this could be, one of the most important finds, if not the most important find in the last 20, 30 years in Maya studies.
In terms of late Preclassic Maya, this is basically a Sistine Chapel. It's a painting of Origen's creation.
I don't think there's any doubt that this find is probably going to change our whole view of what Maya civilization was thinking about. When they were creating their art, when they were putting down their vision of their cosmology and the origins of the universe.
It's a scene from the great Maya myth of creation, recorded 1,500 years later in the epic called the Popol Vuh.
This is the beginning. There is not yet a person, an animal, meadow, forest. Only the sea pooled under all the sky. It is at rest. Only the god called Heart of Sky. And in the water, plumed serpent. In the blackness, in the early dawn.
The myth tells the story of the god of maize. He is the deity at the center of the Maya cosmos, responsible for the corn on which all life depends. The maize god descends to the underworld, where the lords of death kill him. They hang his head in a tree. Years later, his children, the hero twins, come in search of him and defeat the lords of death. Magically resurrected, the maize god returns to the surface of the earth. As he emerges, the first day of the world dawns. It is a story that obsessed the Maya of the classic period. Here was a version painted centuries earlier. Not a primitive rendering, but one that was exquisitely realized. At El Mirador, Richard Hansen and his team have been digging for nearly a month.
Muy bien. Híjole. Ahí la tengo.
They're very close to where they think the tomb should be.
He's buried somewhere. Now we just want to be the ones to find it. We don't understand, I need to understand what the resistivity is on some of these readings. Oh, yeah. We'll keep going. We're going to try some more.
In the Guatemalan highlands, persistence is paying off.
Nothing like this. Faded out.
They are studying an unexpected detail in the mural of San Bartolo. Writing. Among the very first hieroglyphs ever found from the Preclassic.
it's really hard to overstate the importance of these glyphs here. We've never found murals that have had paintings with glyphs like this. They're very ornate. There's calligraphy here. There's artistry that we just have never seen in any other kind of discovery.
The Preclassic Maya could regain their voice if only David Stewart could read their text. Perhaps the most brilliant hieroglyph reader of his generation, David knows what marvels can be revealed when lost writing is deciphered. He also knows that making sense of unknown symbols can take decades, even centuries. For Maya writing, it's an epic story that began in Mexico in 1549. The Spanish conquest is only a few years old. Care of Maya souls has been entrusted to a Franciscan friar, Diego de Landa. Landa struggles for years to convert the Maya to Christianity and wean them away from what he sees as the satanic practices of idol worship and human sacrifice.
You have to consider Maya human sacrifice from within their own frame of mind, that blood was required for the continuation of the cycles of agriculture. So although we may look at blood sacrifice as this horrific occurrence, for the Maya it was very necessary.
The arrival of Christianity didn't decrease Maya devotion to blood sacrifice. It seemed to reinforce it.
Now, in comes a Christian God, and with that Christian God, new images of blood sacrifice. In this instance, Christ being crucified. These are not peaceful Christs. These are very bloody, bruised, damaged Christs. And so these images really rang true with the Maya, that this sacrifice of the Son, the God, was for them a very powerful image. And they took it upon themselves to do very similar things.
To his horror, Landa heard that Maya rituals had taken a grisly new turn. Children were being crucified. True or not, he used these revelations as justification for his campaign to stamp out Maya religion in all its forms. He ordered the burning of their sacred texts. He humiliated the accused as their religious icons were destroyed. An untold number of manuscripts, the heart of Maya culture, were lost in the conquest. Before long, all knowledge of their hieroglyphs had disappeared. But the very man who ordered the destruction of Maya texts would furnish the keys to their eventual decoding. Diego de Landa. Even as he was suppressing Maya religion, Landa was struggling to understand it.
Well, what he was doing was, like many of his contemporaries, he was writing a manual for other priests to know the native religion in order to stamp it out.
One day, Landa asked a scribe to write down what he called an ABC of Maya, an alphabet of hieroglyphs.
He had a Maya informant, a scribe named Gaspar Antonio Chi. And Landa would ask him, okay, how do you write the letter A? That's Spanish for A. Or how do you write the letter B, which is B in Spanish?
In later years, when people tried to use Landa's alphabet, they could make no sense of it. Landa was ridiculed, his ABC consigned to historical oblivion for the next 400 years. Spring 1945. In the final days of the Second World War, Soviet troops have closed in on Berlin. Many of its buildings are in flames. A young Russian soldier, Yuri Konarosov, races into the National Library and emerges with a volume of Maya texts. Konarosov is a student of languages. Back in Russia, he immerses himself in his rescued Maya writings. He hears about Landa's forgotten alphabet and decides it could provide the key. For years, Konarosov struggles with the document. Then, never having seen a Maya ruin in his life, he finally makes sense of Landa's ABC. He has broken the Maya code at last. In time, the cities of the classic period could be read like books. The walls of ruined buildings were a record of their lives, their births and marriages, their battles, and their deaths. Konarosov kick-started the revolution of decipherment. 50 years later, David Stewart is following his footsteps as he puzzled over the last great enigma, Maya writing from the pre-classic. The intricate glyphs on the mural defy decipherment.
I couldn't really tell you what any of this means. There are elements here that I've never seen before. So there's a different feel to these glyphs. There's something else going on, maybe a different system before they standardize things later.
What seems like a defeat is actually a revelation. David believes he is looking at a snapshot from the dawn of Maya writing, before it settled into its fixed form. For the moment, its meaning remains a mystery, with one important exception.
The exciting thing about this particular text, though, is the very last glyph. And this is the way this scribe at San Bartolo wrote it. This is the glyph that is actually very recognizable from later examples as the word ahau, which means lord or noble or king.
It is one of the earliest written records of a pre-classic Maya king. But where are their tombs? At El Mirador, Richard and his team have tunneled deep into the Jaguar Temple, finally arriving at the place where the imaging system showed a cavity.
Verlos un poquito más.
They could be minutes away from finding the tomb of great fiery jaguar paw.
I just broke to the cell wall. No hay otro, no, ¿será que otro ahí? Or ya rompimos esta? We broke through here, we found more fill and rubble. There should have been a chamber or something on the other side of this wall.